here we are. It's finally day 7, the last day. We vlog every day for a week, and you probably know what's coming, but it's the history of Marvel. First founded in 1939, it was originally known as Timely Comics, then became Atlas later, and finally didn't become Marvel until 1961, which, well, the first comic really that we know into the new model Marvel era was Fantastic Four. We'll get on to that later. The first comic published was called Marvel Comics, later known as Mighty Marvel Comics. It saw the first appearance of a couple of, well, the kind of appearances of modern-day superheroes. There was the Human Torch and the Submariner, or Namor the Submariner as he was later known. But the Human Torch isn't the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four. He was an android, which later became the Vision, kind of, in a weird way. Anyway, he was a robot, so he wasn't quite the human Fantastic Four. He wasn't quite the human. He wasn't the human Torch, but he was the Human Torch. With the outbreak of war, they decided to create the first patriotic superhero, so thus, Captain America was born in America. He didn't actually punch Hitler, just so you know. That comic front cover is very, very misleading. While no other character from this time would succeed as big as these three, there were the introduction of what later would become actual Marvel superheroes. There was Wizard, Kazar. Kazar's this big jungle man from the Forbidden Wastes. I can't remember what it's called. It's the Lost Kingdom jungle thing where the dinosaurs still live. It's under the Antarctic. But anyway, yeah, he appeared along with an early incarnation of the Vision and somebody else. Let's say Wizard. If I didn't, Wizard. Oh, and Angel from the X-Men, but he was a detective at the time, so it's kind of him, but kind of isn't. It's just that probably maybe coincidence with the name. It's rather a not unusual name. With the war over, superhero comics began to decline quite dramatically. So, under the title now Atlas Comics, they decided to do whatever was big at the time, whatever was huge on radio or whatever movies that were coming out. So they dabbled into westerns, war comics, giant monster comics, espionage comics, suspense comics, funny animal comics, men's adventure comics, jungle comics, sport comics, and even Bible comics. I really want to see if there's not one, if there's there should be comic pictures here of some of these. If I don't find a Bible comic one, I'm going to be very sad later. Then finally, in 1961, they decided to print the Marvel name, or come up with the Marvel name, whatever. But the first comics to appear were Journey into Mystery number 69 and Patsy Walker number 93, I think? 95. But this doesn't matter, these comics weren't interesting, nothing really big came from them. But the first big superhero team book was The Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four! In Fantastic Four number 1. Where they fight the Mole Man. This began to establish the company's reputation of kind of not parodying, but changing the idea of superheroes, where they would wear costumes, well, they do wear costumes, but not in the beginning, and secret identities, because everyone knows who the Fantastic Four are. But also they added, I would say, a human nature to the character, where Superman didn't have, he was just a superhero who did things. These ones had real-life, real-world problems. Peter Parker, for example, he had school to deal with, his Aunt May to deal with, not deal with, but she had to look after him. A few of them, she had a heart attack while he was on a mission, kind of thing. Multiple love interests. The newspaper with J. Jonah Jameson. He had all real-world problems, which made him which all the characters seem to have. They all had this kind of human problem kind of thing, which made them all unique. And also some of the heroes, like the Thing, didn't actually look like they should be heroes, they should be more monsters. So again, kind of going against the conventions of the time. Marvel then began to publish a wave of the most famous superheroes of the day. We had Spider-Man in Amazing Fantasy number 15, Incredible Hulk in The Incredible Hulk number 1, Doctor Strange in Strange Tales number 110, Ant-Man, who first appeared in Tales to Astonish 27 as a kind of, because the comics then were just filled with like short stories, he was in a random short story, but people liked him so much they brought him back and actually made him a superhero. I said, Fantastic Four already came out. Daredevil, X-Men, and the Avengers in the Daredevil, Avengers, and Daredevil, X-Men, and the Avengers #1 respectively. I think there are the big ones that I can think. Oh, 4 in Journey into Mystery #83. Am I missing anyone important? Am I missing anyone important? No, I don't think so. Move on. This also saw the introduction of some of the more memorable supervillains like Doctor Doom, Magneto, Galactus, the World Destroyer, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus. As I said before, they were like superhumans in the real world kind of stories. The heroes were often misfits, outcasts, looked like they should be villains. Well, this natural approach also went into the stories that were written. It was said that, by a comic book historian that I can't remember the name of, he said that there were probably more communists that appeared in Marvel than were actually subscribed to a communist newspaper at the time. Every villain turned out to be pretty much a communist if it wasn't one that was pre-established. I mean, Black Widow was a communist spy originally. Iron Man was caught by communists. Ant-Man was attacked by communists in his lab. A whole host of things like that. Basically, the Cold War affected the entire of the universe at the time and made them more real-worldy, but then also made them so extreme in that sense where everyone was communist. Created a common enemy. It meant they were selling well as well. I mean, really well. In 1971, some department for the US government who worked with making sure people didn't die approached Stan Lee to ask him to write an anti-drug, basically PSA, about why drugs are wrong and stuff. Well, so Stan Lee did, of course. He's Stan Lee. He's Stan the man. Of course he would. So he wrote a Spider-Man. It was 3 parts, but the damn Comic Code Authority, who we met in the Batman review before, said that he couldn't do it due to he couldn't allow drugs references, even if the whole point of the story was against drugs. He wasn't allowed. But Stan, being the man, published it anyway, and it was a great success, and everybody loved it. And then the Comic Code Authority changed their rules over this. Where Batman failed, Marvel won. Stan Lee then became publisher, and it was at this time that on every single comic, the words Stan Lee Presents were written on the first page and before the title. He is so friggin' awesome! Again, Marvel decided to try and diversify their stories by introducing horror stories like The Tomb of Dracula, which saw the introduction of the more, again, like Doctor Strange, the mythological fantasy kind of thing, but Dracula saw mythical monsters appearing and the introduction of Blade, the vampire hunter. And also there were satire ones like Howard the Duck. And also sci-fi ones like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Star Trek, and even the long-running Star Wars that is still being published today. In 1972, Marvel then managed to pull ahead of DC in the sneakiest move imaginable. What they did was, they increased the length of the pages and then raised the price. So what did DC do? Increase the length of the book, raise the price. But Marvel then decided, we'll lower our prices again. So they had more for less, and DC were doing more for more. Who are you gonna buy? I mean, it's friggin' genius. I don't know why, I quite find that funny.